morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
After we got back from a 4-hour ride where I kind of got turned around in the bush and Billy pointed out that I had led the way up a trail that was not the one I thought we were on, we were sitting on our deck watching the sun go down after a great meal of tenderloin roast and garden vegetables, followed up by her homemade Saskatoon cobbler. Ooh, that was good. We reflected on the way things seem to be here in cattle country, and we feel like we've got more blessings than we can count. And in spite of all the negative news that comes from wherever, this week our music and our stories, I hope, will give you a lift. Now, I know the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight sure will. A 12-year-old young cowboy won the poetry contest in his 4-H club, and you'll hear why today.
As the stampede got closer to the canyon wall, I realized my boss would fire me if I let even one calf fall.
It's called the Close Call Roundup from Caleb Knoll, and I think you're going to love it. Baxter Black really makes something out of nothing today.
Or nothing on Highway 43 from Edmonton to Grand Prairie. Well, in my ramblings, I've seen a lot of nothing. It appeals to me. Breathing room, big sky.
And on the Rangeland news, lots of interesting stuff.
Expect price drops also for crops like wheat, soybeans, rice, and cotton.
Now, if you're a longtime listener, you'll be familiar with the music of award-winning singer-songwriter and former working cowboy R.W. Hampton. And today, you'll hear the first installment of a great visit with this guy who's been there and done it and has a great way of talking about it.
It's kind of one of those things that could have been a terrible wreck, but somehow got the bull to stand still, ran my rope through the side of the trailer, tied it off hard and fast to the horn, got off the horse.
It's amazing how he loaded that bull with the help of an amazing horse. And before we start the stories, got to play one of his songs.
I want to saddle my horse in the darkness, ride out in the morning dew. I want to breathe some air that's never been breathed. I want to drink the wine of freedom, toast the good ones that we knew. I want to count 1,000,000 stars and think of you. Want to see one more hometown rodeo where it's hats off for the flag. We'll cheer that bucking horse in the wild ride. I want to shoot a hole in my TV set and let the silence ring on through. I want to count 1,000,000 stars and think of you. Don't tell me that the West is dead and gone. My poor heart can't stand to hear that saddle song. If you're saying that you missed it all, I'm betting that you're wrong. Don't tell me it's dead and gone. Want to see one more Charlie Russell print in some old sale barn cafe where the old men over coffee tell their tales. I want to ride out with a wagon, smell the scent of springtime sage. I want the wind at my back on down the trail. Want to see suntan cowgirl cheeks and long braids neath a hat. Want to hear the summer rain on the roof at a country dance. Then we'll ride out our raging storm till the light comes shining through. And then I'll count 1,000,000 stars and think of you. Don't tell me that the West is dead and gone. My poor heart can't stand to hear that saddle song. If you're saying that you missed her all, I'm betting that you're wrong. Don't tell me it's dead and gone. Don't tell me it's dead and gone.
that, a couple of the best guitar pickers in the world of Western music today. On there, you heard the great Rich O'Brien, and coming up, a couple of songs where you hear my little brother Jim. Well, R.W. Hampton and his family raise good working horses, and these days R.W. starts a lot of them, but not all of them anymore.
A variety of good hands that have worked for us, young cowboys that like to ride, and sometimes I'll start them and put 30 days on them and send them off to somebody else. And it took me a little bit of getting used to. I felt like I was a failure because I was having someone else starting these colts, But I travel sometimes every weekend, but at least 3 weekends a month somewhere. And so just the logistics, and Hugh, and your audience knows you have got to live with horses to get them really broke, And I just didn't have that opportunity anymore, But we've still got them, still got the horses and a few head of cattle, and we love being able to afford to have our own place. And I always dreamed of the day when I would dig a post hole to set a post, and it'd be my post hole diggers and my post on my land. And I'm really blessed and thankful that we're able to do that.
A lot of fellas I know that have spent their working life on big outfits and cowboyed and were happy to be able to do it, did the job with a lot of pride and took pride in their gear and their horsemanship and their skills, have kind of had that dream, and it's so nice. And boy, do they make good ranchers if they can work themselves into that situation. And you know what I found too, when we had to stop taking a lot of outside colts and the broadcast side of things got busier, and I still get to cowboy quite a bit, but I just start colts on my own once in a while. But I finally had to realize that every colt I started just wasn't going to be a superstar. No, and I used to take that personally, but I've come across a few that it just wasn't there.
Well, that's true, Hugh. They're all individuals, and, you and I kind of came from the same background where the horses that we rode, that we broke, were a direct reflection of us. And so by golly, we expected them all to give their best, but not every man is an Olympic star, basketball star. Not every person is a world-class singer or musician, and not every horse is going to be, that champion, that you're talking about. But, that's a little hard to get used to.
And yet you never know where a superstar is going to come from sometimes either. Sometimes it's related to bloodlines, and sometimes it's not at all. Right. You can get a horse of a totally unknown pedigree, and my gosh, you can just be amazed what they can do. And you will hear about a horse like that R.W. had just a little bit later. And when we come back, we'll talk about something that we both tried to do, and that's master the challenge of singing and playing guitar in front of an audience on horseback. Not the audience on horseback, but us on horseback. And you'll find out why it's not as easy as it looks when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Coming right up is a good song from Ed Wall's latest CD, but right now it's back to the visit with my old pal R.W. Hampton. Saw a picture of you somewhere on horseback in an arena with a guitar in your hand, and the caption, I think, was, "I'll go where I please." But, I've been trying to do that, and playing a guitar and singing when you're on a horse is okay if that horse is standing perfectly still, but if he's moving, I found that can be a little tough. Now, do you do much of that?
I don't, Hugh. I had an old paint horse, and he was one of those. He was kind of an old cold-blooded horse, but he was colorful. He had a lot of personality, and he was one of those. I used him at some rodeos where it was kind of an experiment on my part to ride in there, be mic'd, ride in the arena, and I'd drop the reins and just kind of drape him around the saddle horn, and he'd just stand there, And and I had to have that because if he ever moved, it just completely threw me off, But I don't do that a lot anymore. But it was fun, It kind of harkened back to the days of Gene and Roy,
That's what, of course, we both grew up watching those movies, and there's Roy riding along on Trigger with his guitar, singing a song to Dale, and in the next shot, there's the bad guys coming down off the rocks, and Roy and Trigger are just right on their tail, and he's firing shots at them, and whatever happened to that guitar, they don't tell you.
I think that somewhere he must have had in his band of cowboys someone that's all, it was his job, that when the bad guys came, just to hand that guitar off, because it just mysteriously disappeared somehow. Yep.
Yeah. But I've got a little buckskin mare that, here again, she's totally unknown pedigree, and her story is kind of interesting, and she's getting up in years now, but I started her when she was 7. She came from an Indian reserve where they kind of run like wild horses, and I really kind of enjoyed doing this and practicing in the backyard with my guitar, and if I got the strap short enough, it doesn't bang on the horn.
There's a lot of different things go into that.
Yeah, and I tried tying the reins or using a loop rein and around my wrist. Well, when she happens to put her head down, then that just throws it all off. But I can do quite a bit of bridle stuff with her in the right situation, so I can I love sorting cattle without a bridle or anything, so it works pretty well. But by the time you get that transmitter on your belt, and the headset and all the rest of it, and you do a sound check, and it's got to work just about right. But it can be done, and it's kind of neat. I do it at a few clinics and gatherings and stuff like that.
Well, people love it. People love it. They're enchanted by a man on a horse singing with a guitar, and it must be nostalgic in some way.
You'll hear more about that horse and another special one of our dubs after a song from Ed Wall's latest CD with a couple of my boys from the Western Spirit Band backing him up, Uncle Mike on bass and little brother Jim on lead guitar. I probably shouldn't be talking over top of Jim's guitar work, but he'll get me back anyway. The song is called In Heaven on a Horse.
I've tried my hand at city life. I guess that I was hoping I could find a better way of living that was laced with happiness and peace of mind. But the bright lights of the city only make this cowboy feel alone. And I found what I'd been searching for was waiting all this time right here at home. I'm in heaven on a horse on the wide open prairies of Dakota, where life sings me a melody and my heart sings in harmony. My troubles never been so few before. I've tried to live in different ways where fortune comes but never stays. I'm tired of broken dreams and closing doors. Now nature is my closest friend, and I'm content that each day's end alive and free, and who could ask for more? Now I rest here in the saddle in the shade of this old oak tree, with the cattle grazing peacefully on green summer grass above their knees, as the soft southern breezes gently blow my every care away from me. And I realize without a doubt that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm in heaven on a horse on the wide open prairies of Dakota, where life sings me a melody and my heart sings in harmony. My troubles never been so few before. I've tried to live in different ways where fortune comes but never stays. I'm tired of broken dreams and closing doors. Now nature is my closest friend, and I'm content at each day's end alive and free, and who could ask for more? Now nature is my closest friend, and I'm content at each day's end alive and free, and who could ask for more?
Oh, that was nice. And I should mention that the steel there, beautiful steel guitar played by our good friend Bo Hughes. Steel guitar player that loves Western music and plays it well. Now back to R.W. Hampton.
Yeah, this old paint horse, what I'd wind up doing is when I kind of practiced at home, I would get one of my boys when I dropped my reins to hobble him. And so he'd kind of pick his feet up like he's going to move, and somehow he got it into his head that when he heard the guitar and when I was singing, that he was hobbled, you know. And that was my only way around that. Otherwise, he would just wander off, you know.
Yeah. I wonder when they made a lot of those movies, surely some of those horses had to be hobbled when the guy makes that running, flying mount.
You bet, yeah.
Tell me about some of the other real good horses you've rode or owned over the years.
Boy, I've rode a lot of horses. I have my hats off to the horses I rode when I was just learning, you know. And I had an old-time cowboy, a matador cowboy, one time said, son, you need to know more than that horse does before you go to training on him, you know. But I've been blessed with riding some good horses that carried me over a lot of rough country. Hugh, you know as well as I do that when you have when you need to go rope something, and when you're young and you throw caution to the wind, you know, you think there's a lot of open air and opportunity there, you know, and I'm so thankful for the horses that you know, got me safely to where I was going. Some of them have kind of slipped out of my you know, I can see their faces, and some of them I can remember their names, and some of them I haven't. One of the best little horses was a little bitty sorrel horse, kind of a streak-faced sorrel horse. He had one eye. The other eye was knocked out by a mesquite thorn, and he had a heart as big as Dallas, and he was too little for what I was using him for, but his heart was big. No one ever told him he was too little. And I remember one time, we just called him One Eye, and I roped, we had a problem on this ranch that I worked on where they weren't getting the bulls gathered, and so this fellow that hired me had taken over, and one of the things that the owner wanted was to get those rogue bulls gathered because they were having calves when they didn't want them, you know, and so we would ride out and during the hot part of the day and find these old bulls on water, the ones that couldn't be gathered, and we'd rope them, and we'd park a pickup and a trailer somewhere in the vicinity, but I remember I caught this old bull,
and we've got to leave it there for now, but we will let you know what happened, and it got very interesting, and we'll let you know what happened with that bull just a little bit later. Baxter Black really makes something out of nothing. And you'll hear a brand new song from the Western Spirit Band when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at Ain't Seen Nothing Yet.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
Mick owned a gas station alongside Interstate 80 in Hershey, Nebraska. It was to supplement his agricultural habit, as he called his farming operation. One hot afternoon, a sporty vehicle with Massachusetts plates pulled in to gas up. The driver unwound himself from the bucket seat, stood on the gravel, and stretched. He let his gaze travel the full circumference of the horizon around him. "My gosh," he said, somewhat overwhelmed. "What do you do out here in the middle of nowhere?" "Oh, we just scratch around in the dirt and try and get by," answered Mick. "This is the most desolate place I've ever been. There's nothing here." "Where you going?" asked Mick. "San Francisco." "On I-80? "Yep." "Well," said Mick, "you ain't seen nothing yet." Where exactly is nothing? Well, according to Mick, it waited for this pilgrim on down the road. It's 638 miles from Hershey to Salt Lake City, the next city on I-80 with smog. In contrast, on I-95, it is 430 miles from Boston to Washington, D.C. In between, it passes through Providence, New York City, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, all of which are bigger than Salt Lake. But after this poor traveler got his transfusion in Salt Lake, Nothing waited for him further down the road, 525 miles on I-80 west to Reno, with no town over 35,000 en route. Some folks say you might see nothing on I-10 from Junction to El Paso, or nothing on Highway 200 from Great Falls to Rapid City, or nothing on I-40 from Flagstaff to Barstow, or Highway 20 from Boise to Bend, or nothing on Highway 43 from Edmonton to Grand Prairie. Well, in my ramblings, I've seen a lot of nothing. It appeals to me. Breathing room, big sky. Matter of fact, I've seen nothing in busy places like South New Jersey or the Ozarks or the UP. You got to look a little harder, but it's there. Nothing, that is. Well, Mick sold the gas station, but he still lives in Hershey. He says it feels like home. Me too. There's something about nothing I like. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
Not much can raise your stress level more than a tractor breakdown when you need it most. We've all spent hours on the phone and driving around trying to find the right parts, and that's no fun when you're missing something you need to finish the job. Here's a better way. Just go to bctractorparts.com. That's where you can find about any part for any make of tractor. If you're restoring a vintage tractor or just keeping up the maintenance on the ones you're using, you can have the parts you need in a short time. And you know what? There's some great pictures of tractor restoration projects and much more right there at bctractorparts.com. What? Oh, you don't have internet? Well, try calling Mark at 250-395-0960. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland news, I'll let you hear the soundtrack from a music video we made recently featuring the Western Spirit Band, little brother Jim and Uncle Mike and I all playing river song instruments, and the great Tom Cole singing some harmony on a song that Magma Winnie wrote the words to, and I managed to come up with a melody for. We call it The Campfire. Sounds to me like it was in spring roundup. Big cow herd and the chuck wagon and the cowboys had moved the herd on the first day. They had a long ways to go. They got camped and built a fire and had supper, and they realized that some of the cows in the herd had not calved yet. And then they noticed one cow that looks like she had just calved, but there was no calf with her. So, after supper, one fella gets designated to saddle his best horse and go back the way they came to see if he can find that calf, and hope he didn't get lost because it was getting late. I can smell the wood smoke hanging in the chilly midnight air. Now I know the cow camp is somewhere over there. Beyond that I should do it, then I'll lay my bedroll down. First I've got to mother up this new stray calf I found. The campfire now lights up the sky in the valley down below. Cowboys huddle around it, silhouetted in the glow. I can almost feel the fire's warmth as I wave off thoughts of doubt that we'd ever make it here before that last flame flickers out. Across my saddle horn. If I hadn't found him, he'd be dead before the morn. My horse treads heavy-footed from the long day left behind. Now it's grub and coffee by the fire foremost on my mind. The campfire now lights up the sky from the valley down below. Cowboys huddle around it, silhouetted in the glow. I can almost feel fire's warmth as a wave of thoughts of doubt that we'd ever make it here for the last flame flickers out.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West, a roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
At the top of page 1, it says it's been a great year for growing in much of the West. Hay crops, pasture, and range grass and gardens are really doing well, as are most field crops, but that may have an influence on prices as some records are being set. Here's Gary Crawford.
In his briefing on the new USDA crop production report, we heard Lance Honig with the USDA Statistics Service use this word a lot.
Record, over and over. And many times the record referred to record yields, not necessarily record production, but in some cases both. Corn, for example.
181.8 bushels per acre, the highest yield on record. Our production forecast at 15.3 billion bushels, a record high.
USDA also looking for record high yields for soybeans, cotton, and several other crops. One possible result:
big supplies weighing on prices for sure.
USDA's Outlook Board Chairman Mark Jaganowski, and yes, USDA has cut its average price forecasts for several crops. New crop corn looking for a price $0.50 lower than this past season's crop at $3.10 a bushel.
The lowest season average price since the 2006-2007 crop year.
Expect price drops also for crops like wheat, soybeans, rice, and cotton. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
The British Columbia government has bought a working cattle and hay ranch for the Zatsul First Nation as a part of treaty negotiations. The 1.7 square kilometer acre ranch northeast of Williams Lake includes a half square kilometer of hay-producing fields, 500 head of cattle, and 2 houses. The government paid longtime ranchers Roger and Allison Patnode $8 million for the ranch with a promise to cover the operating cost for a year. The First Nation, also known as the Soda Creek Band, will lease the property from the government until a treaty is reached with the Northern Swempik Band, at which point ownership will be transferred. The ranch purchase also includes several water licenses, 2 grazing licenses, and a grazing lease. And Kevin Boone, the hard-working general manager of the BC Cattlemen's Association, says his group backed the deal. He said, "We're pleased to say it is moving ahead and look forward to the Soda Creek Band becoming more active members in the ranching industry in BC." Congratulations and a tip of the Golden Stetson to Ricky and Chad Seelhoff of the Wood Jam Ranch, nestled in a lush valley between the Caribou Mountains and Williams Lake. Not far from the community of Horsefly, they are the winners of the 2020 Ranch Sustainability Award from the BC Cattlemen's Association. The award was presented at a virtual ceremony that officially recognized the family's achievements for advancing sustainability on their ranch. And oh man, I found this disturbing. At least 5 horses have been killed and butchered in a community south of Houston, Texas. Police and the Pearl Land Animal Services found a horse that had been killed by what investigators say was a fatal stab wound to the chest. The perpetrators then removed the horse's back straps and the front and hind quarters, leading officers to believe the animal was killed for its meat. And on August the 8th, the officers again were called to investigate 2 more missing horses. The owner reported the horses were missing and her property fence had been cut, and those 2 were discovered dead and butchered about a half a mile away on adjacent land. They also had their back straps and hind quarters removed. Now, as the result or the number of active cases of COVID-19 continues to rise, we have made the decision to cancel Concert 83, scheduled for the Lido Theater in Fort St. John, originally scheduled in April and then rescheduled for September 18th and 19th with the Western Spirit Band along with Tom Cole and friends. Man, we were really looking forward to that one. We really have no way of knowing what the situation will be in the spring, but we sure hope it'll improve enough that we can try that again. And how about this? The Vanderhoof Yards of the BC Livestock Co-op are having a sheep and a goat sale on September 3rd. Hey, that's my birthday. But please don't buy me anything from that sale. And there's a special yearling sale as well as a regular sale on September the 8th at the Kamloops Yards and regular sale September 10th at the Williams Lake Yards. Get all the information and see the sales streaming live at bclivestock.bce.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, some good cattle rolling into that area, and boy, there seems to be a big demand for yearlings. And regular sales, of course, every Wednesday, and they'll be starting pre-sort calf sales in the fall. We'll keep you posted. Get all the information at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com or give Danny, Mark, or Dwayne a call at 1-800-710-3166. Okay, are you ready for the final item? All right, it's little known fact number 376. In Norway, they have problems with herds of wild horses that are destroying the delicate ecosystems around those narrow ocean inlets. And they are planning to start exporting fjord mustangs. And that's the Rangeland News. On the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll discuss how when you're riding with one rein in each hand, it's important not to have your hands too far apart, and the rest of that bull-loading episode from R.W. Hampton when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West, coming up in the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File. A look at why it's important not to have your hands too far apart when you've got a rein in each hand when you're riding. First, though, here's a pretty sound. Okay, here's an update on the next Spirit of the West cruise, and as you have probably heard, we are making some changes. We have postponed what Billy and I are calling our Farewell Spirit of the West cruise until June of 2021. Okay, Big Rig, a little banjo music, please. We still expect to have just about everything we had planned for this year in place for next year, and Jim and Karen have said, if you'd like to come, then your deposits will be held until then. We're already making plans and preparations for having the whole group start things off June 17th, 2021 with a visit to the McLennan Ranch and a concert with the Western Spirit Band. We'll have coaches to take you all from our place up the beautiful Sun Peaks for a wonderful alpine experience, and then we all head down to Vancouver. A night in the spectacular Fairmont Waterfront Hotel. Something really special planned for the next morning, and then we board Holland America's Conningsdam for a 7-day cruise up the Inside Passage to Alaska. And there'll be a lot of extra events for our group, including the famous White Pass Rail Tour. For everybody currently booked, there will be complimentary drink packages, complimentary specialty dining for one night, and shipboard gratuities will be paid for each guest. We would like to thank all of you who are planning on joining us in July and hope that you can adjust the dates and join us in 2021. We'll keep you informed with the details as they come, and as always, Megan, Jim, and Karen can give you lots of information. 1-800-530-0131.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Reality is, right now, we can't just hop on a plane and jet away, and to that I say, who cares? If you're like me, you'd rather be riding anyhow. Here, there, and way up in the mountains, but first, go see my friends at Irvine Tack and Western Wear. All the gear you need to saddle up and hit the trails. And hey, how about some new jeans, shirts, and boots for the ride while you're at it? Irvine Tack and Western Wear, exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield. Canada's largest Western store. IrvinSaddles.ca is where you can shop online and, oh man, spend hours looking at all that wonderful stuff. That's a nice way to shop these days. The longer I get to hang around with cowboys who are great horsemen, guys like Miles Kingdon and Jonathan Field and several others, the more I appreciate the subtle things that seem so small but play a huge part in helping to keep a horse balanced, comfortable, soft, and willing. And I've also watched less experienced riders, sometimes in events like team penning, riding in a snaffle with both hands, one hand on each rein, and keeping their hands wide apart. Now, my thoughts on this are that keeping your hands too wide and using direct rein pressure to direct your horse is the wrong way. It goes somewhat against what I used to do for years riding colts. I was always ready to disengage the hindquarters if things looked like they were going to get out of hand. But what I've learned since then is that a horse feels better when everything is lined up. His head, his neck, his spinal column, and his hindquarters, along with the rider, being balanced. Now, even in the early stages with a Snaffler Bosel, I've found that keeping my hands close together really helps the horse keep his shoulders in position and stays balanced in the turn. And it can prevent him from counterbending. And this also really, I think, helps lay a better foundation for moving beyond the snaffle and Bosel and eventually developing a well-balanced bridle horse. And for urban saddles and western wear, that's the Horse Training File. And you know, every day our horses all get that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration, and we are convinced that's one of the reasons why they're looking so good and staying so healthy. You can find out all about it at their very interesting website, hoffmanshorseproducts.com. The way the Canada Revenue Agency deals with ranchers and farmers has changed a lot in the last few years, and the financial decisions we make today can have a long-lasting impact on our bottom line far into the future. It really helps to have a trusted professional who really understands your situation to guide you with all your accounting requirements and your tax preparation. Having an accountant who knows the difference between a Hereford and a heifer, what a slick and backgrounding are, and that Alfalfa and Timothy are not just names from a storybook really helps. Kathy McMillan of PMT Chartered Professional Accountants understands the intricacies of specialized programs like Agri-Stability and Agri-Invest. She understands the demands on your time and can help you spend more time doing your job and less time dealing with endless piles of paperwork. See PMTaccountants.com or call toll-free 877-383-8081. Now, there's one of R.W. Hampton's all-time favorite songs coming up, but right now, we better pick up the story of how he was riding that small, one-eyed horse with a big heart, gathering bulls that were pretty hard to catch and load.
But I remember I caught this old bull, and I stopped him from going the wrong way, and then kind of, we used to drive a cow on the end of our rope, you know, and I got him fairly close to that trailer, and got him up there and to the trailer, and it was kind of one of those things that could have been a terrible wreck, but somehow got the bull to stand still, ran my rope through the side of the trailer, tied it off hard and fast to the horn, got off the horse, you know, and went back and got the bull loaded with the horse working by himself, you know. But he was just one of those kind of point me towards the work, tell me what you want me to do, and we'll get her done, you know. Right. And that's just every cowboy's had those kind of experiences. But I probably didn't appreciate him as much as I should have then, but I sure do now, you know. Yeah. I bet he didn't weigh he didn't weigh 1,000 pounds soaking wet, but
that would make quite a picture, quite a video now with a horse working by himself and you behind that bull with whatever it took to get him into that trailer. I'd never done it quite that way.
Well, and you know, and it was one of those have to things, and you know what? And Hugh, when I was younger, there were things that I did that I couldn't do, but nobody told me I couldn't do it, so they wound up getting done anyway. But yeah, I had to get off this old horse because he would lock his front legs up under that trailer, you know, and so, you know, I'd go back there and I'd talk to my horse and twist this old bull's tail, and we finally got him loaded. But
yeah, this gathering, doctoring, roping bulls can be an adventure, I'll tell you. There are times when they haven't been that hard to rope, but I've been kind of sorry I'd roped them after the rope went off.
Well, yeah, Hugh, you know, the easy part's getting a loop on them, you know, and probably the last thing you want to do, especially a horn bull, is catch him around the horns. You know, you need to catch him around the throat latch where you can have a little
air out of him.
Yeah, take a little air out of him, and then you can, yeah,
or have him step one leg through that loop or something, you know, and then you got him deep, and oh boy.
Yeah, oh boy, yeah, boy.
Well, the cowboy adventures with R.W. will continue next week. And a few years ago, he wrote a song that has already become something of a modern Western classic song, been recorded by many folks already, including Mike and Martin Murphy, and it really resonates with so many of us.
The painted walls of Paladura, how my heart can see them yet, as a boy of 18 summers, long before I knew regret. There I rode the bold unwilling, and my loop was keen and true, and even in the dead of winter the sky seemed always blue. Where, oh where is Bud Delaney? He could ride and ride 'em tall. Haven't seen him since he quit here 10 years ago last fall. I hear him moved out east of Kingman, and he's taken different ways, but a better hand at punching cows there wasn't in his day. And it's been saddle, horse, and catch twine that has been my life. Some say it's been my downfall, for the world has passed me by. The life I live I freely chose, I'm at it yet tonight. I was born to be a cowboy, and I will be till I die. We were camped on Rita Blanca, me and Bud and Steve and Paul, in old man Fulton's wagon, way up in the fall. Colder than the Dickens, when the work was done, we'd catch a fresh horse and lope to town, just looking for some fun. In the heat of summer branding, we'd get an early start, jingling the horses, saddle in the dark, ride out on the morning without a spoken word. The ring of spur, the fall of hoof was all that could be heard. And it's been saddle, horse, and catch twine that has been my life. Some say it's been my downfall, for the world has passed me by. The life I live I freely chose, I'm at it yet tonight. I was born to be a cowboy, and I will be till I die. I first laid eyes on Darcy Taylor at the Channing Christmas ball, the daughter of a circuit preacher, the fairest of them all. I knew I could never have her, but I loved her just the same. And I still get that old-time feeling when I hear her name. Photographs and and trophy buckles, the things you hold with pride as eyes grow dim won't mean as much as what you got inside. But I've got lots of memories, to me worth more than gold, and I can say I'm ready, Lord, anytime it's time to go. And it's been saddle, horse, and catch twine, that has been my life. Some say it's been my downfall, for the world has passed me by. The life I live I freely chose, I'm at it yet tonight. I was born to be a cowboy, and I will be till I die. I was born to be a cowboy, and I will be till I die.
Born to be a Cowboy with R.W. Hampton and the smooth Western harmony there, sung by the great Don Edwards. Well, there's something really neat coming up in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, along with a long-lost classic song of the West, When the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Got something really special in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight coming right up after this week's classic Song of the West. But first, I think my old pal Rick Huff wants to say something.
Howdy, folks. I'm Rick Huff, host of the Best of the West Review, broadcast weekly from Albuquerque, New Mexico. In my humble opinion, Hugh McLennan's great Spirit of the West program has set the standard for broadcast features, reporting, and entertainment in the Western field, and he's not paying me to say that. You're very lucky to have found it in Canada, the U.S., or on the World Wide Web, and here's a perfect example of what keeps folks tuned in.
Aw, shucks, thanks, Rick. You know, in 1999, that guy, Rick Huff, produced an amazing documentary CD on the life and times of the legendary High, Buzzy, and the Frontiersman. Somebody you may have never heard of, but boy, folks like Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Rex Allen, Rusty Richards, and the list goes on, credit him as a mentor and a hero. Radio, film, and TV, and on stage he provided beautiful Western music, played behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And in 1993, when High Buzzy was inducted into the Western Music Hall of Fame, the Western classic song that's coming up shows the beautiful four-part blend of voices, and it's the one that was coming out of the speakers in November 1993 when High Buzzy walked onto the stage to receive the award from Rusty Richards, and we were there. And the song is When the Cattle Range Is Gone.
When the cattle range is gone, when the cowhand's work is done, and he sold his rope and gun, what will become of the cowboy when the cattle range is gone, when he faces the setting sun and the last of the West is won? What will become of the cowboy when the cattle range is gone? Soon he can look across the prairie
with his pony standing by and
see the miles of fences stretching to meet the sky when the last frontier is won and the final roundup's done. What will become of the cowboy when the cattle range is gone? When the cattle range is gone.
And let's hope that never happens. Well, now for the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight. Caleb Knoll is 12 years old. He lives with his family not too far from our place, and it turns out he not only has listened to this program for most of his young life, but he's probably watched every Roy Rogers and Gene Autry movie ever made. He knows all about the Sons of the Pioneers. He loves to ride, and he's won a few buckles already. His 4-H club had a cowboy poetry competition recently, and after I saw a copy of Caleb's winning poem, I thought, you should hear this. So I called him up, and his mom brought him over. We sat Caleb down here in the studio, and he recited Close Call Roundup.
I woke up one morning to go for a ride. A cool summer breeze was blowing outside. I pulled on my jeans, boots, and cowboy hat and opened the door and smelled sagebrush. There's no better smell than that. My horse's soft nicker came to me on the air, and then he trotted over to me as if he didn't have a care. I strapped my saddle on tight, and it fit just right. Up overhead shone the sun, and I mounted up and spurred my horse into a run. Today I was rounding up cattle, and that was always fun. As I rode farther out onto the plain, I gave my horse more rein, but suddenly the direction of the stampeding cattle changed. They bolted off towards Lone Canyon, but there was no one to head them off because I had no riding companion. I made my horse run as fast as he could and head off those cattle I knew I should. My horse gained speed with a sudden burst, and as the cattle moved closer to the edge, I knew I had to get there first. As the stampede got closer to the canyon wall, I realized my boss would fire me if I let even one calf fall. But I got to the edge just in time and got the startled cows back in line. I did a head count and patted my good fast mount. Then I thought, I better be going because my horse is tired and the cattle were lowing. I got the whole herd to the stockyard and brushed off my horse because I had ridden him hard. And as I put him away, I thought to myself, man, what a day. But for saving those cattle I knew I'd get roast beef as pay.
Boy, it's so refreshing to see young folks growing up with an appreciation of our ranching values and traditions. And thank you so much for making the ride, and sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to the official Spirit of the West support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And oh yeah, the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine should be available now. You can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Be sure to check out the YouTube and podcast versions of the program, and you'll find the links at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. And if you decide to become a subscriber, that would be great. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.